I grew increasingly upset over the next several days. I couldn't reach her at her home because I didn't know that number, and I wasn't even sure where they lived. My mood became increasingly depressed, and my mother, who had been really nice as of late, asked me if I was okay. I told her that I hadn't heard from Veronica in days, and I felt all the warmth leave her disposition. What do you mean? She was supposed to meet me at the movies yesterday. I know it's only been like 3 weeks since she got hit, but she said she would try to come. And after that, she just stopped talking to me altogether. She must hate me. She looked confused, and I could read on her face that she was trying to tell if my mind had simply broken. When she saw that I hadn't, her eyes began to water and she pulled me toward her, embracing me. She was beginning to sob, but it seemed so intense a reaction to my problem, and I had no reason to think that she particularly cared for Veronica. She drew in a shuddering breath and said something that still makes me nauseous, even now. Veronica's dead, sweetheart. Oh God, I thought you knew. She died on the last day you visited her. Oh, baby, she died weeks ago. She had completely broken down, but I knew it wasn't because of Veronica. I broke the embrace and staggered backwards. My mind was swimming. This wasn't possible. I had just exchanged messages with her yesterday. I could only think to ask one question, and it was probably the most trivial I could ask. Then why is her phone still on? She continued sobbing. She didn't answer. I exploded. Why did it take them so long to shut off her goddamned phone? Her crying broke enough to mutter, "The pictures." I would come to find out that her parents thought her phone had been lost in the accident, despite the fact that I had put it in her purse the night she was brought to the hospital. When they retrieved her belongings, the phone was not among them. They intended to contact the phone company at the end of the billing cycle to deactivate the line, but they received a call informing them that a massive impending charge for hundreds of pictures that had been sent from her phone. Pictures. Pictures that were all sent to my phone. Pictures that I never got because my phone couldn't receive them. They learned that they were all sent the night she died. They deactivated the phone immediately. I tried not to think about the contents of those pictures, but I remember wondering for some reason whether I should have been in any of them. My mouth went dry and I felt the painful sting of despair as I thought about the last message I received from her phone. See you again soon. Jesus. God damn. Took her phone. Yep. This guy is actually insane. 10 years of stalking. It's 10 years now. Oh, I'm sure it does, tension. Like, we've escalated to murder at this point. I do want a little break. I have to pee. I will look at that picture. I'm going to get Sokka food because I think he's hungry. Food and water. And I'll be back. Be safe while I'm gone. Don't let the picture man hit you with his car. a 12, and that's it.
Damn.
I have concrete at 7.
Fun.
Where is my 12 o'clock? Far away. It's far away.
I do be ready whenever.
Okadoke.
So let me ask you a question then, Jacob. Do you like Imagine Dragons?
Yes.
Imagine Dragon these nuts in your face. Got him. Next question.
Okay.
Don't fall off, please, Jacob House.
Yeah, please be careful. You know what? Just crouch. Why don't we just
Please.
crouch?
Throw your
So what
portal
do we
into
do?
it.
Oh.
Oh, the house fell.
Good night, Jock.
Ugly handful drop into drop. You beardless, eel-skinned tosser.
Tosser.
Ugly beetle-headed wretch.
Tosser.
You rapid water drinking idiot.
Can I see the map just really quickly?
What you know about it? You're gonna steal it from
No,
me.
I'm not.
My pants. Did it get on my shirt? No, we're good.
103 degrees scorching heat. Put a dip in and sweat your bollocks off. Kind of heat. Toad sliding off the log 'cause it's too hot, kind of hot. Then you ain't ever experienced heat, son. Now I tell you what. That's a Jaco get. Oh no. Oh my god.
Holy shit.
You can call someone hot without being like attracted to that gender.
Yeah.
Baby back, let's go. GG, I lagged. I can't see the reaction. Here, I'll give it to you again. Piss pants. Good for you, dude. Oh my god, and there's ink sacs. Also, literally every text, and when someone says it's hot, true. True. You don't know heat until you experienced Texas heat. Until you've been sitting in front of your pool looking at it because it's too hot to get in the water. 103 degrees scorching heat. Hello. Percy, I feel like you captured the intensity of Kratos very well. I love that picture, bro. Very well done. Your shading work is awesome, bro. Like on the neck, behind the ears and shit, and in the clothing. Very well done. Very well done. I'm not an artist, so if I'm pointing out things that are just easy shit, I apologize. But that's what I from a non-artist perspective, that's what I saw and appreciated. Ugh. Okay, let me get comfy. Oh. For anyone that would like to read along, the link is at the top of the screen. If you just like to listen, then listen. Enjoy. Literally the first time I've done ink work or anything like that in that sketchbook, so thank you. Oh, proud of you, Percy. You're killing it, bro. Sokka has been fed. He's a happy boy. Happy boy. All right. Part 6. Friends. On the first day of kindergarten, my mother had elected to drive me to school. We were both nervous, and she wanted to be there with me all the way up to the moment I walked into class. It took me a bit longer to get ready in the morning due to my still mending arm. Cast came up a couple inches past my elbow, which meant that I had to cover the entire arm with a specially designed latex bag when I showered. The bag was built to pull tight around the opening in order to seal out any water that might otherwise destroy the cast. I had gotten really adept at cinching the bag myself. That morning, however, perhaps due to my excitement or nervousness, I had pulled the strap tight enough, and halfway through the shower, I could feel water pooling around the inside of the bag at my fingers. I jumped out and tore the latex shield away, but could feel that the previously rigid plaster had become soft after absorbing the water. Because there is no way to effectively clean the area between your body and cast, this dead skin that would normally have fallen away merely sits there. When stirred by moisture like sweat, it emits odor, and apparently this odor is proportionate to the amount of moisture introduced. Because soon after I began attempting to dry it, and it was struck by the powerful stench of rot. As I continued to frantically rub it with the towel, it began to disintegrate. I was growing increasingly distressed. I had put as much effort as a child could into his very first day of school. I had sat with my mom picking out clothes the night before. I had spent a great deal of time picking up my backpack. And I had become exceedingly excited to show everyone my lunchbox that had a Ninja Turtles on it. I had fallen into my mom's habit of calling these children I hadn't yet met my friends already. But as the condition of my cast worsened, I became deeply upset at the thought that surely I wouldn't be able to apply that label to anyone by the time this day was over. Defeated, I showed my mom. It took 30 minutes to get most of the moisture out while we worked to preserve the rest of the cast. To address the problem of the smell, my mom cut slivers of a bar of soap and slid them down the cast, and then rubbed the remainder of the soap on the outside in an attempt to cocoon the rancid smell inside with a more pleasant one. By the time we arrived at school, my classmates were already engaged in their second activity, and I was shoehorned into one of the groups. I wasn't made very clear on what guidelines of the activity were, and within 5 minutes I had violated the rules so badly that each member of the group complained to each other and asked why I had been let into their group. I had brought a marker to school in hopes that I could collect some signatures or drawings on my cast next to my mother's, and I suddenly felt very foolish for having even put the marker in my pocket that morning. Kindergartners had the lunchroom to themselves at my elementary school, but some of the tables were off limits, so I didn't have to sit alone. I was self-consciously picking at the fraying ends of my cast when a kid sat across from me. "I like your lunchbox," he said. I couldn't tell if he was making fun of me, and I grew really angry. In my mind, that lunchbox was the last good thing about my day. I didn't look up from my arm and felt a burning in my eyes from the tears that I was holding back. I looked up to tell the kid to leave me alone, but before I could get the words out, I saw something that made me pause. He had the exact same lunchbox. I laughed. "I like your lunchbox too." "I think Michelangelo's the coolest," he said while miming nunchuck moves. I was in the middle of rebutting, but said that Raphael was my favorite when he knocked his open carton of milk on the table onto his lap. I tried very hard to stifle my laughter since I didn't know him at all, but the struggling look on my face must have struck him as funny because he started laughing first. Suddenly, I didn't feel so bad about my cast, and thought that this person would hardly notice now anyway. Just then, I thought to try my luck. "Hey, do you want to sign my cast?" As I pulled out the marker, he asked how I broke it. I told him that I fell out of the tallest tree in my neighborhood, and he seemed impressed. I watched him laboriously draw his name, and when he was done, I asked him what it said. He told me it said Josh. Josh and I had lunch together every day, and whenever we were partnered up for projects, I helped him with his handwriting. And he took the whole blame when I wrote fart on the wall in permanent marker. I would come to know each other. I would come to know other kids, but I think I knew even then that Josh was my only real friend. Moving a friendship outside of school when you were 5 years old is actually more difficult than most remember. The day we launched our balloons when we had such a good time that I asked Josh if he wanted to come to my house the next day to play. He said he did and that he'd bring some of his toys. I said that we could also go exploring and maybe swim in the lake. When I got home and I asked my mom, she said it would be fine. My enthusiasm was boundless until I realized that I had no way of contacting Josh to tell him. I spent the whole weekend worrying that our friendship would be dissolved by Monday. When I saw him after that weekend, I was relieved to find that we had run into the same obstacle and thought it was funny. Later that week, we both remembered to write down our phone numbers at home and then exchange them at school. My mom spoke with Josh's dad, and it was decided that my mom would pick up Josh and myself from school that Friday. We alternated this basic structure nearly every weekend. The fact that we lived so close made things much easier on our parents, who seemed to work constantly. Get fogged, bro. Sorry, bot, you fucking legend. When my mom and I moved across the city at the end of the first grade, I was sure that our friendship had seen its last day. As we drove away from the house I had lived in almost my whole life, I felt a sadness that I knew wasn't just about a house. I was saying goodbye to my friend forever. But Josh and I to my surprise and delight, stayed close. Despite the fact that we spent the majority of our time apart and only saw one another on weekends, we remained remarkably similar as we grew. Our personalities coalesced, our sense of humor complemented each other's, and we often find that we'd started liking new things independently. We even sounded enough alike that when I stayed with Josh, we would sometimes call my mom pretending to be me. His success rate was impressive. My mom would sometimes joke that the only way she could tell us apart was by our hair. She had straight, dirty blonde hair, like his sister, while I had curly, dark brown hair like my mother. One would think that most likely to drive two young friends apart would be what's out of their control. However, I think the catalyst of our gradual disengagement was my insistence that we sneak out of my old house to look for boxes. The weekend I invited Josh over to my house in keeping with our tradition of alternating houses, but he said that he wasn't really feeling up to it. We started seeing progressively less of one another over the next year or so, and it had gone from a week to once a month to once every couple of months. For my 12th birthday, my mom threw a party for me. I hadn't made that many friends since we moved, so it wasn't a surprise party since my mom had no idea who to invite. I told the handful of kids I'd become acquainted with and called Josh to see if he wanted to come. Originally, he said he didn't think he could make it, but the day before the party, he called me to say that he'd be there. I was really excited because I hadn't seen him in several months. The party went well. My biggest concern was that Josh and the other kids wouldn't get along, but they seemed to like each other well enough. Josh was surprisingly quiet. He hadn't brought me a gift and apologized for that, but I told him it wasn't a big deal. I was just glad that he was able to make it. I tried to start several conversations with him, but they seemed to keep reaching dead ends. I asked him what was wrong. I told him that I didn't get why things had become so awkward between us. They were never like this before. We used to hang out almost every weekend and talked on the phone every couple of days. I asked him what happened to us. He looked up from staring at his phone and just said, "You left." Ooh. That you took Josh because he looks so much like him? Ooh. Ooh. Just after he said that, my mom yelled in the other room that it was time to open presents. I forced a smile and walked to the dining room as they sang happy birthday. There was a couple of wrapped boxes and a lot of cards since most of my extended family lived out of the state. Most of my gifts were silly and forgettable, but I remember that Brian gave me a Mighty Max toy shaped like a little snake that I kept for years afterwards. My mom was insistent that I open all the cards that had been brought to thank each person who had given one, because several years before on Christmas, I had torn through the wrapping paper and envelopes with such fervor that I had destroyed any possibility of discerning who had sent the gift or what amount of money. We separated the ones that had been sent by mail and ones that had been brought that day, so my friends wouldn't have to sit through me opening cards from people they had never met. Most of the cards from my friends had a couple dollars in them, and the ones from my family members contained larger bills. One envelope didn't have my name written on it, but it was in the pile, so I opened it. The card had generic floral pattern on its face, so it seemed to be a card that was received by someone else who was now recycling it for my birthday because it was actually a little dingy. I actually appreciated the idea that it was reused cards since I'd always thought that cards were silly. I angled it so that the money wouldn't fall on the floor when I opened it. But the only thing that was in the message that was inside was the message that I had come printed on the card. I love you. Whoever had given me this card hadn't written anything in it, but they had circled the message in pencil a couple of times. I chuckled a little and said, "Gee, thanks for the awesome card, Mom." She looked at me quizzically and then turned her attention to the card. She told me it wasn't from her and seemed amused as she showed my friends. Looking at their faces, trying to discern who played the joke, none of the kids stepped forward, so my mom said, "Don't worry, sweetheart. At least you know that 2 people love you." She followed that with an extremely prolonged and excruciating kiss on my forehead that transformed the group's bewilderment into hysteria. They were all laughing, so it could have been any one of them, but Mike seemed to be laughing the hardest. To become a participant rather than the subject of the gag, I said to him that just because he had given me that card, he shouldn't think I'd kiss him later. We all laughed, and as I looked at Josh, I saw he was finally smiling. "Well, I think that gift might be a winner, but you have a couple more to open." My mom slid another present in from me, in front of me. I was still feeling the tremors of suppressed chuckles in my abdomen as I tore the colorful paper away. When I saw the gift, I had no need to suppress the laughter anymore. My smile dropped as I looked at what I had been given. It was a pair of walkie-talkies. "Well, go on, show everyone." I held them up and everyone seemed to approve, but as I drew my attention to Josh, I could see that he had turned a sickly shade of white. We locked eyes for a moment, and then he turned and walked into the kitchen. As I watched him dial a number on the corded phone attached to the wall, my mom whispered in my ear that she knew that Josh and I didn't talk as much since one of the walkie-talkies had broken, so she thought I'd like it. I was filled with an intense appreciation for my mom's thoughtfulness, but this feeling was so easily overpowered by the emotions resurrected by the returning memories I tried so hard to bury. When everyone was eating cake, I asked Josh who he had called. He told me he wasn't feeling well, and he called his dad to come get him. I understood that he wanted to leave, but I told him that I wished I could hang out more. I extended one of the walkie-talkies to him, and he put his hand up in refusal. Dejected, I said, "Well, thanks for coming, I guess. I hope I'll see you before my next birthday." "I'm sorry. I'll try to call back more often. I really will," he said. The conversation stagnated as we waited by the door for his dad. I looked at his face. Josh seemed genuinely remorseful that he hadn't made more of an effort. His mood seemed suddenly bolstered by the idea that had struck him. He told me that he knew what he'd get me for my birthday. It would take a while, but he thought that I'd really like it. I told him it wasn't a big deal, but he insisted. He seemed in better spirits and apologized for being such a drag at my party. He said that he was tired, that he hadn't been sleeping well. I asked him why that was, and he opened the door in response to his dad's honking in the driveway. He turned back toward me and waved goodbye as he answered my question. "I think I've been sleepwalking." That was the last time I saw my friend, and a couple months later, he was gone. Oh,
I'm in danger.
Mm-hmm. Jesus. Over the past couple of weeks, the relationship between my mother and I has grown increasingly strained due to my attempts to learn the details of my childhood. It's often the case that one cannot know the breaking point of a thing until that thing fractures. And after the last conversation with my mother, I imagine that we will spend the rest of our lives attempting to repair what had been taken a lifetime to build. She'd put so much energy into keeping me safe, both physically and psychologically. But I think that the walls meant to insulate me from harm were also protecting her emotional stability. As the truth came pouring out the last time we spoke, I could hear her trembling, the trembling in her voice that I think was reverberation from the collapse of her world. I don't imagine my mother and I will talk very much anymore. And while there are still some things I don't understand, I think I know enough. After Josh disappeared, his parents had done all they could to find him. From the very first day, the police had suggested that they contact all of Josh's friends' parents to see if he was with them. They did this, of course, but no one had seen him or had any idea where he might be. The police had been unable to turn over any new information about Josh's whereabouts, despite the fact that they had received several anonymous phone calls from a woman urging them to compare this case with the stalking case that had been opened about 6 years before. If Josh's mother's grip on the world loosened with her son, if Josh's mother's grip on the world loosened when her son vanished, it broke when Veronica died. She had seen many people die at the hospital, but there is no amount of desensitization that can fortify a person against the death of her own child. She would visit Veronica twice a day since she was recuperating at a different hospital, once before her shift and once afterward. On the day Veronica died, her mother was late leaving work, and by the time she arrived at her daughter's hospital, Veronica had already passed. This was too much for her, and over the next couple of weeks, she became increasingly more unstable. She would often wander outside, yelling both Josh and Veronica to come home. And there were several times her husband found her wandering around my old neighborhood in the middle of the night, half clothed and frantically searching for her son and daughter. Due to his wife's mental deterioration, Josh's dad could no longer travel for work and began taking construction jobs that were less well paying so he could be closer to home. When they began expanding my old neighborhood more, about 3 months after Veronica died, Josh's dad applied for every position and was hired. He was qualified to lead build states and took a job as a laborer helping to build frames and cleaning up sites, whatever else was needed. He even took odd jobs and would occasionally come up mowing lawns, repairing fences, anything to keep from traveling. They began clearing the woods in the exact area next to the tributary to transform the land into inhabitable property. Josh's dad was tasked with the responsibility of leveling the recently deforested lot, and this job guaranteed him at least several weeks of work. The fact that his mom had the feeling the stalker was the one that took Josh, yeah. On the third day, he arrived at a spot he could not level. Each time he'd drive over it, it would remain lower than the surrounding land. Frustrated, he got off the machine to survey the area. He was tempted to simply pack more dirt onto the depression, but he knew that it would only be an aesthetic and temporary solution. He had worked construction for years and knew that root systems from large trees had been recently cut down and would decompose, leaving weaknesses in the soil that would manifest as weaknesses in the foundations above. He weighed his options and elected to dig a little with his shovel in case the problem was shallow enough to fix without needing a machine that would have to be brought over from another site. And as my mother described where this was, I knew I had been in that spot both before the soil was broken and before it had been filled in. I felt a tightening in my chest. He dug a small hole about 3 feet down until his shovel collided with something hard. He smashed his shovel against it repeatedly in an attempt to gauge the thickness of the root and the density of the network, when suddenly his shovel plunged through the resistance. Confused, he dug the hole wider. After about half an hour of excavating, he found himself standing on a brown blanket-covered box about 7 feet long and 4 feet wide. Our minds work to avoid dissonance. If we hold a belief strongly enough, our minds will forcefully reject conflicting evidence so that we can maintain the integrity of our understanding of the world. Up until the very next moment, despite what all sense would have indicated, despite the fact that some small but suffocated part of him understood what was supporting his weight, this man believed, he knew his son was still alive. My mom received a call at 6 p.m. She knew who it was, but she couldn't understand what he was saying. But what she did comprehend made her leave immediately. Down here, now, son, please, God. When she arrived, she found Josh's dad sitting perfectly still with his back to the hole. He was holding the shovel so tightly it seemed that it might snap, and he was staring straight ahead with eyes that looked as lifeless as a shark's. He wouldn't respond to any of her words and only reacted when she tried to gently take the shovel from him. He dragged his eyes slowly to hers and just said, "I don't understand." He repeated this as if he had forgotten all other words, and my mother could hear him still muttering as he walked past to look in the hole. She told me she wished she had gauged her. Oh, gouged. Robin! Hi, welcome in. This is really intense shit. How was your stream, bro? What were you playing? How is you? Thank you for the raid. I'm gonna eat these really quick while I'm taking a break. Mm. Oh, what mod pack? It's sour, so I can create more saliva. Totally not using that as an excuse to eat candy. Oh, your mod pack. You're making it. Holy shit, dude. Guys, if you're not following Robin already, please go and do so. Go do that. Go. Fix some bugs and write more quests. I can't believe that, dude. That is so much work. I am intensely proud of you for sticking to that shit. And I am thoroughly impressed. And you can try and say that it's actually not a lot of work, but you'd be lying. Maybe you're just used to it. But Robin, welcome in. We're reading scary stories. Scary. We're almost done with this one, but I think we're starting a new one after this. It's only constantly switching between 3 different programming languages and constantly relaunching Minecraft. Yeah, no, that's it. That's it. That's all it is. Easy, light work. Either way, I am proud of you. That is a lot to do. And I wish you luck. So much luck. Oh. I don't know if I want to keep reading this. I'm kind of scared. Something big's gonna happen, like right here. Like more than what's already happening. Like his childhood friend Josh is laying in that casket. You have to finish it. I know I do. I know I do. She told me she wished she had gouged her eyes out before she faced downward into that crater. I told her that I knew what she was about to say and that she need not continue. I looked at her face and it was expressing a look of such intense despair that it caused my stomach to turn. I realized that she had known of this for almost 10 years and was hoping that she'd never have to tell me. As a result, she never came up with the proper arrangement of words to describe what she saw. And as I sit here, I'm met with the same difficulty of articulation. Josh was dead. His face was sunken in and contorted in such a way that it was as if the misery and hopelessness of all the world had been transferred to it. The assaulting smell of decay rose from the crypt, and my mother had to cover her nose and mouth to keep from vomiting. His skin was cracked, almost crocodilian, and the stream of blood that had followed these lines had dried on his face after pooling and staining the wood around his head. His eyes lay half-lidded, facing straight up. She said by the look of him he had not been long dead, and this time had not brought the mercy of degradation to erase the pain and terror that was now etched into his face. She said it was as if he had flexed his gaze right on her, his open mouth offering an all-too-late plea for help. The rest of his body, however, wasn't visible. Someone else was covering it. He was large and lay face down on top of Josh, and as my mother's mind stretched itself to take in what her eyes were attempting to tell her, she became aware of the significance of the way in which he laid. He was holding Josh. Their legs lay frozen by death, but entangled like vines in some lush tropical forest. One arm rested under Josh's neck, only to wrap around his body so that they might lay closer still. As the sun passed through the trees, its light became reflected by something pinned to Josh's shirt. My mother stooped to one knee and raised a collar of her shirt over her nose so that she might block out the smell. When she saw what had caught the sun, her legs abandoned her and she nearly fell into the tomb. It was a picture. It was a picture of me as a child. She staggered backwards, gasping and trembling, and collided with Josh's father, who still sat facing away from the hole. She understood why he had called her, but she could not bring herself to tell him what she had kept from everyone for all these years. Josh's family never knew about the night I'd woken up in the woods. She knew now that she should have told them. But to tell him now would help nothing. As she sat there, resting her back against Josh's dad's, he spoke. I can't tell my wife. I can't tell her that our little boy. His speech staggered in fits as he pressed his wet face into the dirt-caked hands. She couldn't bear it. After a moment, he stood up, shuddering, and lumbered towards the grave. With a final sob, he stepped down into the coffin. Josh's dad was a big man, but not as big as the man in the box. He grabbed the back of the man's collar and pulled hard. It was as if he intended to throw the man out of the grave in a singular motion, but the collar ripped and the body fell back down on top of his son. You motherfucker! He grabbed the man by the shoulders and heaved him back until he was off of Josh and sat awkwardly but upright against the wall of the grave. He looked at the man and staggered back a step. Oh God. Oh God, no, 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 no. Please, God, no. In a struggling but powerful movement, he lifted and pushed the corpse completely off the ground, and they both heard the sound of glass rolling against wood. It was a bottle. He handed it to my mother. It was ether. What is ether? Do you want Alan Wake's sneak peek break? Because I can make it happen. Yes. Yeah, ether. This seems different. In a struggling but powerful movement, he lifted and pushed the corpse completely out of the ground, and they both heard the sound of glass rolling against wood. It was a bottle. He handed it to my mother. It was ether. An anesthetic? Welcome back from work, Raven. It was one of the first used in surgery. Really? This method continues to be used for 50 years during both World War I and World War II. While ether was effective as an anesthetic, it did have its shortcomings. It was highly flammable, and once it released out into the air, could be easily cause explosions. Okay. Sedation and euphoria. That was my first thought, Raven, so you're not far off, bro. Most common type of ether is diether, which is extremely flammable, was one of the first anesthetics used in surgery. It's a sleeping drug. Is that what was causing the sleepwalking? to knock himself out cold while in the coffin. Holy shit. Probably. Oh, Josh, he sobbed. My boy, my baby boy. Why is there so much blood? What did he do to you? Jesus Christ. You know what? I do need that break, Percy. This is wild. Most likely used for him to carry the kids. See, I don't understand that. How is he getting in the houses? Because he always said that he would end up on the opposite bunk, right? And then all of a sudden he was outside one night? Like, is he actually sleepwalking? Oh my god, the crawl space. I didn't even think about that. Jesus. Oh, I love the colors. It's so moody, dude. Fuck, yes.
Emotional damage.
No, no emotional damage. No emotional. Well, yeah, actually, in this story, there is so much emotional damage. But we're not talking about that, are we? We're talking about happy things, like muffins. Never tried something shaded this way, so why not try it with Alan Wake? Honestly, dude, boy, no. It looks like a, you know, in Arcane when everything kind of like bursts into watercolors. That's what that reminds me of. You know what I'm talking about? If you've seen the show, obviously, but or oh god, I can't remember the name, but she was on the council. Jace was really into her. They Jace went into her room and she was painting. It reminds me of that painting. Okay. Percy, thank you for that break, bro. I needed that. Base colors too. I'll get more chaotic and fun when I have them all in. Yes, please. Yes. Show us. As my mother looked at the man who now lay facing upwards, she realized she was facing the person who had haunted our lives for over a decade. She had imagined him so many times, always evil and always terrifying, and the cries of Josh's father seemed to confirm her worst fears. But as she stared at his face, she thought that this didn't look like who she imagined. This was just a man. As she looked at his frozen expression, it actually looked serene. The corners of his lips were turned up only slightly. She saw that he was smiling. Not the expected smile of a maniac from a film or horror story, but the smile of a demon, or the smile of a fiend. This was the smile of contentment or satisfaction. It was the smile of bliss. It was the smile of love. As she looked down from his face, she saw a tremendous wound on his neck, where the skin had been ripped out. She was at first relieved when she realized that the blood was not Josh's, Perhaps he had suffered less. But this comfort was short-lived as she realized just how wrong she was. She brought up a hand to her mouth and whispered, almost as if she was afraid to remind the world what had happened. They were alive. Joss must have bitten the man's neck in an attempt to get free, and although the man had died, Josh couldn't move him. I began crying when I thought of how long he might have laid there. She looked through the man's pockets for some kind of identification, but she only found a piece of paper. On it was a drawing of a man holding hands with a small boy, and then next to the boy were initials. My initials. I'd like to think that she was remembering that part of the story inaccurately, but I'll never know for sure. As Josh's father carried his son out of the grave, my mom slid the piece of paper into her pocket and kept muttering that his son's hair had been dyed. She saw that it had. It was now dark brown, and she noticed that he was dressed oddly. His clothes were all far too small. After Josh's dad delicately laid his boy on the soft dirt, he began gently pressing his hands against his son's pants to feel his pockets. He heard a crinkle. Carefully, he retrieved a folded piece of paper from Josh's pocket. He looked at it, but was vexed. Absently, he handed it to my mother, but she didn't recognize it either. I asked her what it was. She told me it was a map, and I felt my heart shatter. He was finishing the map. That must have been his idea for my birthday present. I found myself strangely hoping that he hadn't had been taken while expanding it. As if that would somehow matter now. She heard Josh's father grunt and looked to see him pushing the man's body back into the ground. As he walked back towards the machine that had found this spot for him, he put his hand on the canister of gasoline and paused with his back toward my mother. You should go. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. I did this. You can't think like that. There was nothing. He interjected flatly, almost with no emotion at all. About a month ago, a guy approached me as I was cleaning up the site on this new development a block over. He asked me if I wanted to make some extra money. And because my wife's not working right now, I accepted. He told me that some kids had dug a bunch of holes on his property, and he offered me $100 to fill them. He said that he wanted to take some pictures for the insurance company first, but if I came back after 5 p.m. the next day, that would be fine. I thought this guy was a sucker since I knew clearing that lot was coming up. So somebody would have had to do it anyways, but I needed money, so I agreed. I didn't think he'd even had $100, but he put the bill in my hand and I did the job the next day. I've been so exhausted that I didn't even think about it after that was done. I didn't think about it until today, when I pulled the same guy off my son. He pointed at the grave and his emotions started to push through as he broke into a sob. He paid me $100 so that I could bury him with my boy. It was as if saying it aloud forced him to accept what had happened, and he collapsed onto the ground in tears. My mother could think of nothing to say and stood there in silence for what felt like a lifetime. She finally asked, what he would do about Josh. His final resting place won't be here with this monster. As she looked back, when she reached her car, she would see black smoke billowing and diffusing against the amber sky, and she hoped against all hope that Josh's parents would be okay. I left my mom's house without saying much else. I told her that I loved her and I would talk to her soon, but I didn't know what soon means for us. I got into my car and left. I understood now why the events of my childhood had stopped years ago. As an adult, I now saw the connections that were lost on a child who tends to see the world in snapshots rather than a sequence. I thought about Josh. I loved him then, and I love him even still. I miss him more now that I know I'll never see him again. And I find myself wishing that I had hugged him the last time that I saw him. I thought about Josh's parents, how much they had lost and how quickly that loss had come. They didn't know about my connection to any of this, but I could never look them in the eyes now. I thought about Veronica. I had only really come to know her later in my life. But for those brief few weeks, I think I had really loved her. I thought about my mother. She had tried so hard to protect me and was stronger than I would ever be. I tried not to think about the man and what he had done with Josh for more than 2 years. Mostly, I just thought about Josh. Sometimes I wish I'd never sat across from me that day in kindergarten, that I'd never known what it was like to have a real friend. Sometimes I like to dream that he's in a better place, but that's only a dream, and I know that. The world is a cruel place made by crueler still by man. There would be no justice for my friend. No no final confrontation. No vengeance. It had been over for almost a decade, for everyone but me now. I miss you, Josh. I'm sorry you chose me, but I'll always cherish my memories of you. We were explorers. We were adventurers. We were friends. Jesus Christ. Final thoughts? I think it's his dad. He's never mentioned, so I can't really confirm that theory. But based on how Josh died, it didn't seem sexual in any way. Just love in some fucked up, sick way. Probably, Aaron. Yeah. Those last paragraphs were really hard to read. I'm not going to lie to you. I think he was just ignorant of what he had done. Yeah. That's definitely the case. I'm going to squeeze my squishy cat until the bad guy in my head goes away. Is what I'm going to do. Fuck, man. That ending was messed up. I hope this is fake. Fucking breaks my heart about Josh's parents. Does that mean that if he had met Veronica like a year later, she would have lived? Oh, they absolutely should have went to their parents. But yeah, kids are kids. They're too scared. Not exactly. Oh shit, what did I say? I don't remember. My brain is mush right now. I think the man was just looking to torment him. Oh. Or maybe he was... If he hadn't killed her, maybe he wouldn't have killed Josh. Maybe. Maybe the guy realized that he couldn't keep him from loving someone else in the way that he wanted. So after killing Veronica, he created the ending that he wanted with Josh. Dyed his hair, put him in his own clothes, buried him with him, and just knew that that would be the end. Hurt Josh for hurting him, and took his own life in the single most fucked up way possible. Oh. He wasn't planning on being buried with Josh. Josh killed him. Well, I think he was planning on being buried with Josh. He died with a smile on his face. The guy paid Josh's dad to bury him there with him. I think Josh just killed him because they were in the same casket together. Like there was nowhere else to go. Josh just probably thought he could get out if he killed the man somehow. You know? I don't know. But that guy definitely wanted to be there. Josh's face was sunken in. The man killed him and he wanted to be with Josh. I think sunken in meant like the face was pulled back from decomposition. I think Josh was alive when he was in there. Because they were talking about him living past when the man was alive. Yeah, he definitely didn't kill Josh. Josh died from time. By the way it was written, it didn't seem that the dad knew he was digging that for them. No, not at all. I mean, with how much work he was doing to keep them afloat, him and his wife, like $100 was just a quick job, you know, especially to just push dirt with a machine. Like he mentioned he felt like he was scamming the guy and like it was way too easy. And the guy just handed him $100 bill. Jesus fucking Christ, bro. It's too much. Bro. Too much shit. Too much fucked up shit. Hi, Nexus. How are you? How are you? Let me see what jobs I have tomorrow. God damn it. I have an 8 a.m. I thought he was just refilling the holes in the land. No. He had mentioned when he was talking to the mom that he was digging the grave or burying that man with his son. So the guy paid him the $100, told him to wait until 5 so that he could get pictures for insurance. And that time between those two periods is how long it took him to get him and Josh in that hole. That's why he told him to wait until 5, because he needed to get in there with Josh before and cover himself up. I blame you for the game I'm currently playing. What are you playing, Nexus? Why are you being so weird, Stinky? Stinky boy. TCG shop. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's addicting. Rip those packs, baby. Do you guys have any other theories? "10 years this guy was doing this. He is our mascot. He's even got his own emote. Sakariz. You want to come up and say hi? Want to say hi to everybody? Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Are you the Rizzler? No, you can't have those. You can't have those. Those aren't for puppies. They're not. Oh, you giving hugs. You sweet boy. You sweet boy. I'm getting tangled up in my cord. You big stinky baby. You big stinky. Just trying to draw some Alan Wake. That was just too tense. Yeah. Yeah. Too tense. There was so much information too. Like over the course of those 5, there's so much intertwining
Drink water, you
information.
dehydrated bitch!
Thank you, Nexus. Tension, you said there were books, right? Handsome boy. Stinky baby. Made it into a book. I wonder if the book is more streamlined. Like you get the events more in order versus the Reddit posts. Because that was good. Is this real? Is this a real fucking story? I want to know. Whoops. Don't think so. It's kind of hoping, not gonna lie. That it wasn't real. Not that it was real. Fuckers. The names came from a dream I had a long time ago. I was traveling across a field with someone whom I didn't know. The entirety of the visible landscape was carpeted with corpses. And although it was a day, a dense and vast kettle of vultures had obscured the sun almost completely. I asked my companion if he knew how many vultures were circling above, and he said, 1 for each of the dead, 1,000. That's how 1,000 vultures got their name. Looks like the books is written in the exact same as the Reddit post. Damn. I do kind of like how it's written that way. You know what I mean? Oh, because like you're kind of progressing like through the years, right? But then you get steps back when you're supposed to get steps back, like little flashbacks. This is very well written. I will say that much. This is incredibly well written, very well thought out. Reddit posts were without editors, so props to him. Really? That's completely all Thousand Vultures? Damn. Jesus Christ, bro. And if it was this well written, transferring it to a book would have been so easy. All you have to do is copy and paste. It's 5 chapters. It's that easy. God damn. Have you read the Search and Rescue Officer No Sleep stories? I remember reading some a long time ago and liking them a lot. Search and Rescue. That's not the same thing as the Forest Service ones we read, right? This is different. Search and Rescue. Yeah, these ones. I'm a search and rescue officer for the U.S. Forest Service, and I have some stories to tell. That one we definitely read. I don't know if we read all of them, though. We did read quite a few. Yeah, this one's grayed out, part 6. Oh, I've been a search and rescue diver for 12 years. We see a lot of strange and disgusting things, but what I saw last week has me questioning both my job and reality. That was a while back, Aaron. And those were some late nights. This one looks good. Hold on. Hold on. This was 5 years ago. It's a pretty long one, too. Oh, and there's parts. There's 3 parts, maybe 4. Ooh. Okay, next time. Next time, next time, next time. God, I love No Sleep. I love it so much. Okay, next one we're reading. Not tonight, because I got to work at 8 a.m. But the next one we're reading is I've been a search and rescue diver for 12 years. We see a lot of strange and disgusting things, but what I saw last week has me questioning both my job and reality. Thank you for bringing it to our attention, Tension. Bam. Attention, Tension. I hope you have good sleep and that work goes well tomorrow. I hope it does. I hope work goes well for everyone, including me. I only have one job, so I shouldn't be working late, but I hope it goes well. I really hope. Pen Pal is not based on a true story. It is a fictional horror suspense novel by Dathan Arbach. Ooh. I might be able to finish Alan Wake tomorrow. Ooh. Ooh. Splendid. Very nice. I would love to see it. I would love that very much. Oh yeah, Runesy's live and playing Stardew. You guys need some chill out time after that nonsense. You guys definitely need some chill out time. Rinzy's live. Oh my god, my eyes hurt. Make sure to show some love, as you always do. Runzy's a bad bitch. And an amazing human being. Okay? You understand? So we're going to show our love and appreciation by saying our house now, bitch. Oh. I should be live tomorrow. My job will probably have me working until like 2 p.m., something like that, depending on how it goes. So we'll see. But yeah, I should be on tomorrow. I don't know if I'll be reading again tomorrow or playing games. I'm not entirely sure. I really want to play fucking Lockdown Protocol again. I really, really do. But anyways, I love you. And I'm proud of you. And I hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful night and an even better week. I'll see you guys later. Later. So I can play with you? Fuck yes. Aaron, you down? Yeah, we'll message about it in the Discord. You guys have a good night.